Hello, all you awakening wonders out there. Thanks for joining us. This is Lori and Sally. And yeah, we have our names up there so you can tell the difference. We're going to be talking about DNA activation. What is it and how can it affect you? Hey, Lori.
Hi, Sally. How are you?
Good. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with you. Just a brief overview of what it's like to have your third strand of DNA activated.
Oh my gosh. First and foremost, the biggest thing that comes to mind is clarity. Clarity in my thoughts, clarity in my health, the knowing what my body needs, and knowing what spiritually, emotionally I need, trusting the messages I'm getting. I think we've talked in the past, it's not monkey mind anymore. The messages are very clear. They are immediate and coming right to me. Intuition is so strong, and there's a trust there that wasn't there before. Not a second guessing, just knowing that those messages are coming directly to me. They're meant for me, and I can take action with those, with the knowledge that I'm receiving. So completely different than the scattered kind of, is it my mind? Is that like, oh my gosh, is that anxiety? And then the runaway down the rabbit hole of anxiety. It's just very even, very settled. And I think my demeanor is different. I just don't feel as rattled. Um, good changes.
Yay. Well,
Yay.
well, let's bring the audience up to speed with
Sure.
what the DNA activation is and how it can benefit them at the end of the day. So, Lori and I have been working together for quite some time. She had some health issues, and we started doing remote energy clearing, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Um, but once she was energetically cleared, we thought, hey, let's take this to the next step, which is exactly what we did. And she was willing to volunteer to see how far can we push this energy clearing and what it can do for her. Um, so as we sat down and we began to work together, we understood that there were 12 strands of DNA. Now, we have two strands of active DNA. That's just without question. We wouldn't be alive without it. And then we have another 10 strands of DNA that scientists call, well, junk DNA, because they don't know what else to call it. So they call it junk DNA. But I've always been a believer that there's no such thing as junk in our bodies. For the longest time, they didn't know what the appendix was there for. Maybe they still don't, but I don't believe that there's anything within our creation, in our bodies, that wasn't meant to be there for some reason. So then I began to ask the question, what is those 12 or the 10 strands of DNA? What is their purpose? And so through the process of woo-woo and just kind of doing some research and reaching out to my volunteers to say, am I right? Am I not right? And Lori is one of those volunteers who said, yeah, I'll do this and see what happens. And so we started playing with activating the other strands of DNA and how far could we push it. Now we've just begun with Lori activating the third strand of DNA, but we can go up to 6 strands, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that later, why there seems to be a barrier in activating that 7th strand of DNA. And can we overcome that barrier? What would it take? What is the resistance? So as we began to go through the process and doing QHHT, so I've got a lot of volunteers in this whole process of discovery, we began to learn through different clients that who don't know each other. When I began to pose a question, what does the third strand do? What does the fourth strand do? What does the fifth strand do? They all came back with the same answers. Unrelated people, they don't know each other, And it was interesting because it's what I had already written down. Now, the question is, because they are in that deep theta state, were they mind reading me? I don't know. This is the question I think we all need to be asking. And I think we're all explorers on this journey, and how fun it is to take these steps and see what can happen when you're going through the process of igniting your superhuman in you. So with that said, this is what we discovered. The third strand of DNA that we talked about when when we first started is for clarity. It should enhance clarity. And what I mean by that, with each strand, I believe the two strands of DNA that we already have already embody about everything that we need to sort of navigate through life. But it's a much reduced state. So it's almost like the difference between watching an old black and white TV with three snowy stations. You get the stations, but you don't get it in full color. You don't get it with the clarity that an HD TV would provide you. So what my understanding is that consciousness, this is where it all starts, is with consciousness. Our brains are senders and receivers of information, and the DNA is the antenna. So when you have active two strands of DNA, you only have the black and white TV and the snowy channels going. But if you could activate strands 3, 4, 5, and 6, now you've got enhancement. Now you have HGTV. Did I say that right? It's a high definition TV, right? No, not HGTV. That's a station.
HD, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a high definition TV. My bad. Okay. So with that said, we'll activate after we do energy clearing. So I believe what I'm finding is that when I try to approach activating DNA with people, it's a little bit harder until their systems get energetically cleared. So if you've got stuck emotional energy, if you've got old programs, old belief systems that are hung up, we actually need to clear those energetically first before we can get to the point of DNA activation. So the third strand of DNA activating enhances clarity. And then the fourth strand of DNA enhances psychic abilities. The fifth strand of DNA is enhancing two-way communication interdimensionally. And the sixth strand of DNA activated allows for telekinesis. And I think that's really cool. Now, for full disclosure, Lorrie and I are first cousins. Lorrie and I share a common great grandmother. For her, it's 3 times great. For me, it's 2. And we were told growing up that our great grandmother had telekinesis. And this is from, if anybody knew our granddad, he was not a man of embellishing stories. It was black and white, it was this or that. And he was a no nonsense kind of a guy. So for him to talk about his grandmother this way was pretty amazing, that he would witness her move objects. So we're like, wow, is that inherited? You know, can we do this? And we're like, So I don't know if we can or not, but I do think with all of these strands of DNA, we can turn on the energy. But at the end of the day, everybody's responsible for lifting up those, strengthening that muscle. So when I started doing remote energy clearing, I began to realize I was becoming more and more psychically in tune. And like, to the point where as I'm tuned into people, I began to see their past lives just piling in on me. And they would come in through images. And when I would do people doing quantum healing, hypnosis technique with them, I would begin to get the images of the places that they would begin to describe and the images would come in first, and then they would describe it. So I don't know what's going on here, if it's like mind transference, mind meld, Spock kind of thing, or if there's more going on. But I think the exploration is super exciting. Now, before we get started, I wanted to, I tuned into Matt Frazier, who's this long, he's a psychic medium, a really good psychic medium. And I was just curious if I could ask his higher self questions. So I asked permission of his higher self if I could ask a couple of questions about his abilities. And I got yes. Now, I don't know, maybe I was tuned into him, maybe it was my imagination. I kind of feel like I was. So I don't want to put words or thoughts into Matt Frazier's mind, but when I tuned into him, I got that strands 4, 5 were activated, but not strand number 6. So that goes to my theory when I first started talking to Lorrie, was that strand number 3, 4, and 5 were activated in people like Matt Frazier, Long Island medium, Teresa Caputo, and John Edwards. And so I just kind of want to see, is that what's going on? And energetically, this is what I get, which means this is super exciting. This means all of us have the ability to turn this on. It is not exclusive to them or to me or to Lorrie. This is, anybody can do this if they apply it. So the steps would be clear yourself energetically, get some energetically healing in your mind, body, spirit complex. Once your dimensional self is cleared, you're ready to then begin to turn on and activate your DNA strands. And then it's up to you to exercise that strength. So with all that said, oh, and one more step. There is a step between steps 5 and 6. And that is to activate the magnetite crystals in our brain. We already have them. They're not all activated and turned on. And it's just like a transistor radio where you can get some reception versus satellite radio, where we turn them all on. And, we have to be able to navigate through the forest when a bear's about ready to jump on us, So we do have the abilities, but it's just much reduced. By turning on the antenna, it enhances these abilities. So with all that said, Lorrie, how do you feel since we started from the very beginning, and contrast that to where you are today, and let people know what changes you've noticed? And if you don't mind, if you could talk about even your diabetes, and we could talk about that a little bit too. So go
Yeah,
ahead, you've got the floor.
absolutely. And it's amazing because I think the two were tied in. I think I looked in the beginning like diabetes was such a physical thing, wasn't something we could change with energy. It just was a diagnosis that once given was just there, nothing you could really do about it. And I especially didn't think that energy work, I was very skeptical in the beginning. And we've been doing some energy clearing on some other issues, like more emotional issues. We done many things. Like I had a really, really bad problem. I cracked all my molars, clenching my jaw because my anxiety was just so strong. And we worked on that and we'd remedied that with energy work. So I don't know why it wasn't natural in the beginning for me to feel like this diagnosis was something we could change or influence with energy work. So we started out, in full disclosure, I got this diagnosis early this year, was immediately put on medication because that's just what doctors do. I basically was already living a pretty healthy lifestyle. I was active, I ate pretty well, tweaked it a little, didn't have to overhaul anything. Sally and I started working, and slowly, actually not really slowly, for diabetics, the measure I think is an A1C. And when I was diagnosed, my A1C was 9.3, which was pretty high and pretty extreme. that was, earlier in the spring, and 90 days later, and working with Sally over the summer, my A1C is 6.7, which is just slightly out of the range of being pre-diabetic, which is reversible by medical terms. I feel like diabetes itself, we're showing that it can be reversible. But if you're looking for a number to prove it, there's proof in the pudding. If you want a number, there it is at 6.7. And then we also gauge, we were gauging how I was feeling. I recently started using I've always used the blood glucose monitor where I pricked my finger. I recently got a continual glucose monitor so I could see a little bit more what was happening in real time. My readings are coming in where a person without diabetes would be. So before, it was so high and I was having to, I'm taking the medication. At least once during the summer, I increased my medication because it wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. And then about a month ago, I decided I wanted to see what happened without the medication. And I don't have a very open-minded physician. So I encourage everybody to work with a physician. I have already tried to discuss some options with my physician and it wasn't going over. She was just adding medications. So I'm just really happy to say that I'm on no medication. My numbers are as good, if not better, than I was on the medication. And all we've done is clear that energy. We've started activating the DNA. So physically, I'm speaking to that. That's been an improvement that you can see. If you want proof by numbers, there's your proof in numbers. Clarity wise, though, which is really exciting. Before, I was just kind of, I was in my head, for lack of a better word. I was hearing these voices. I know Sally and I, like, we've talked about monkey mind. It's all it was just monkey mind. It was just, is this a thought? Is this a message? I don't know. And it's just here, there, everywhere. And then going down this rabbit hole of where those thoughts are taking me. Not to be long-winded, but now the clarity of the messages with both my diabetes, like what I know I need, I'm getting these messages. I know how to manage what my body needs, and I'm listening, I'm hearing, I'm understanding those messages I'm getting, but also in like the intuitiveness and my clarity with the world around me. Like a step before, like I hear an answer to something, I hear it in my head, I speak it out loud, and then I'm just kind of blown away. But also like it's such a confirmation, like it's just such a, a feeling of being united with your knowledge, with your spirit team, with the universe, however you want to look at it, with God, whatever your language is, whatever your belief system, it's coming in so clear. Again, it's like that HD TV. It's not that muffled noise of the monkey mind.
Yeah, it
And
gets
that's
really,
influencing.
really clear,
It's
doesn't it?
really clear. Yeah, your thoughts, your,
And you're like,
emotional
that isn't
well-being, your
monkey
physical
mind.
well-being.
Yeah, that's
You're
totally
right.
not monkey mind. This is so clear over here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's immediate. It's not, like we said about, your monkey mind comes in several seconds. Your initial thought, like it is the initial thought, and it's warm and supportive and so clear. Like
Yeah, so it's
it
more
to be
than just
true.
a word coming in your mind. It's a
Yes,
visceral feeling which is enhanced, is what you're saying.
yes, yes.
I think that's so cool. That's so
It's
cool.
awesome. It's just awesome.
So you actually, I mean, it was kind of funny when you called me because you're like, okay, so did I lose my mind because this thing happened? And I began to laugh. So no, that's clarity. That's the Mandela effect. Can you tell us a little bit what happened there?
Yeah, several things.
I love it.
So, so as a little bit of background, I employment wise, my background has always been in senior living. My passion is really memory care, Alzheimer's care. I'm very attuned to signs of early Alzheimer, of dementia. I was wondering, am I seeing this in myself? Because I very clearly did something. I took an action, and suddenly that action, I have no record of it anywhere. I purchased something. It sat in a closet for 2 years. I have tried to place it in my house several times. I know exactly what it was. I came back to put it up in my house. It's a completely different product. And I thought, oh my gosh, I of all people know what the signs and symptoms are of dementia. Am I starting to see them? So I mentioned to Sally, I was really kind of down and a little bit, um, I I was freaked out, quite frankly. I was so disturbed. And I said, Sally, I just got to tell you what's going on. I don't know if I'm a good volunteer anymore. I honestly think I'm losing my mind. And you laughed. You said, no, that's a Mandela effect. And I or effect. I've read about it. I have studied, for some time, and it just didn't click with me that that's what was going on. So after she told me that, it was just like a whole new wave of like, ah, this is, this is stepping up a level. This is not fear-based. This is not, oh my gosh, I, have signs and symptoms of dementia. This is stepping up to the next level.
Yeah, it's like opening up the matrix and now you can see it.
Yes, yes, and
I
it's
know that sounds
relevant.
crazy, but that's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
You
relevant.
know?
It wasn't reading somebody else's experience. It was like, "Oh, that's what this is."
Right.
Yeah,
That
so
is so
cool.
crazy. Yeah. Yeah. The Mandela effect, for anybody who doesn't know, Nelson Mandela, people remember him dying in prison. And then he got out of prison and became president of his country and lived to a ripe old age. And so people are like, well, wait a minute, didn't he die in prison? And I was one of those, like, what happened? So start researching the Mandela effect, because, we talk about the Berenstain Bears and the Berenstain Bears, um, talk about the monocle man in Monopoly. Where does monocle go? The thing with Mandela effect is that you've jumped a timeline when you research something and you go back, and monocle man never had a monocle. Well, growing up, he had a monocle. The little Monopoly man had a monocle. We can still see it in our minds, but oh, it's not there now. Where did it
Where'd it
go?
go?
And then as we turned on this third strand of DNA, then my understanding from what you told me is like, oh my gosh, now, oh, this is clear. I remember it being this, and now it's this. This is clarity. So it doesn't matter what timeline you're on, you know it. You
Right,
know where you were, and
right.
you know where you are, and it's
Yeah,
not, the loss of memory cells is basically.
right. Exactly.
Wow, that's so incredible. So, okay, so basically at the end, how do you feel this whole process has been, from um just tell them how you felt, just physically how you felt when we started to where you feel today. You don't have to get into the minutia, just what shifted for you by activating that third strand of DNA, and how your
Absolutely.
body feels today because now it's cleansed of the
Yeah.
debris.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it. It's not something that we could have done from the beginning. It took that process of you clearing out that energy. And I think also an important note is you can't be passive in letting, whatever energy, healer you're working with, whether it be Sally or somebody else, you can't be passive. She can only do so much. You have to take some responsibility. Um, and amazingly, that ability is within you. Sally had me start with dissolving the clouds. Now, when I feel a little off, I go back to myself. I don't have to call her and say, "Hey, Sally, I'm really off." Like, I can do this. If my blood sugar spikes a little bit, I can recenter and
Yeah, that's
focus
what I
and
was
do
gonna ask
this.
you about, and have you tell them about that part because that's so key. Because, and I don't mean to interrupt, and my apologies, I just like, oh my gosh, that's so right.
We do this all the time. Yeah. It just comes bubbling out.
It's a family thing.
It is.
Um, but yes, tell them about that because, I think in the very beginning when I said, Lori, you need to go out and learn to dissolve clouds, you're like, what are you talking about? And I sent you the video with Greg Braden, who shared a
Mhm,
video on dissolving tumors.
mhm,
And you watched him, and you probably watched that a few times. And
mhm.
you're like, okay, yeah, Sally, that's great. But do I look like a Chinese monk?
Not a monk. Yep.
And I'm like,
Yep.
oh, that was my light bulb moment where I'm thinking, oh, wait a minute. No, 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 no. I need to
Yeah.
put it in a short video, show that the monks are dissolving the tumor in the bladder. And then I
Mhm,
went outside one day and I saw a big cloud up the sky. I said, oh, you're taunting me. You need to be dissolved. So I pulled out
mhm.
my phone and I dissolved this big cloud in 3 minutes. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? It took me 3 minutes because it took 3 minutes for the monks to dissolve the tumors. I thought, wow, because I can do the little wisp in like 45 seconds with this one ginormous cloud
Yeah.
looming over my head.
Yeah.
And I actually got it filmed. It was a bit of a breezy day, so you could see the leaves blowing in the background. It was just this lone cloud. So I kind of followed it and I dissolved it and I put it on a video and I put it up on YouTube. Lori, watch this video. And I said, this is why we dissolve clouds, because it teaches you your thoughts, your attention and intention affects matter. And you don't need me to do it. You have the ability to do it too. So we can, I do this daily on clearing people's energies, and we can turn on the strands. But
Yeah.
ultimately, you have to take charge and say, I'm doing this. I have the ability to place my attention, intention, energies, and I can heal my body. After all, our thoughts and our feelings make us sick.
Yeah.
So our
Yeah.
thoughts and our feelings can also heal us. So tell us
Mhm.
that part. And I'm sorry for
Sure.
interrupting you, but that
No,
was such
no,
a
that's
key
good. And I
part
was
of
gonna
this
say it.
video.
That's the biggest takeaway, I think, for anybody who is watching this. That is the biggest takeaway. Sally can only do so much. But when she gives you a tool like dissolving a cloud, which I'm the biggest skeptic, I went out there and lo and behold, I can dissolve a cloud. I may not be dissolving tumors, but again, I'm a novice. I'm
There's no
just
difference.
learning. There's no,
Frequency is
yeah,
frequency. Yeah.
exactly.
If you're
Yeah,
dissolving a cloud, you can dissolve a tumor. So
yeah.
don't get in your own way.
Don't get in your own way. But that resistance, that inactivity, like not believing in yourself or the energy healing that Sally is doing, that is a resistance that's keeping you from being able to do it. So yeah, get out of your own way. That resistance is just putting up a wall in your own way. So um in terms of like the cloud video, that taught me that if I had a sugar spike, I sat down, and while I won't call it meditating, I could focus on what my body was doing. And I could see in real time that I was decreasing that spike. Now, your body, yes, of course, will do that. I can also see what happens in real time when I'm not focused. So, when you can really instill an effect on something, it will give you more and more confidence. So, I think that's the main takeaway. Just start small and then just keep knowing that you have the power and you have the tools within yourself. I think that's the way. And this is, again, the biggest takeaway. All these DNA strands, all the things in our body that are designed to heal ourselves, that we just think, well, there's a doctor that knows more, there's a medication that will do that. No, our bodies were designed to do this. And if we can open our minds, we are in control of our own destiny and our own future and our own wellness. So, more than anything, that's what I've discovered and going off the medication. And again, disclaimer, go through your doctor. Don't be, I am actively seeking out a functional physician so I can do this hand in hand with a doctor. But I did do it without consulting my doctor because I'd already asked and the answer was no. But
And you
look at
took
the
personal responsibility for your own health and well-being.
definitely, definitely.
Yeah,
And if I had found that this was an issue, I would have gone back on the medication. But luckily, from what I've learned, that's not necessary. The side effects weren't necessary. And the side effects were pretty alarming when you looked at them. I didn't want to trade one issue for another. So I knew I could do this. I knew the work
yeah,
Sally had done. I could, we could make change happen. And lo and behold, we've made change happen.
we
So
did.
my clarity, my anxiety, and the what ifs. What if I can't make this happen? What if I get worse? And again, that rabbit hole. My head is so clear. The clarity coming in now, the messages I'm getting, how to align with what's next and the decisions I'm making are just so specific and they're so concise and so clear. And it really is a different way of existing in the world. So I'm just in a completely different place than I was when we started working and you were helping me unclench my jaw because I couldn't get through the day with the anxious thoughts in my head.
But now you're a lot more relaxed.
So much more relaxed. I don't wake up in the night with my jaw clenched and my, teeth hurting, my jaw, my head
So you're
hurting,
sleeping better.
sleeping better, just so many improvements.
Yeah, and I will say, it's interesting how powerful the mind is. And that didn't come from me. I mean, that was just from me doing research and saying, okay, this is what I've learned,
Mhm.
and everybody has to take it upon themselves what they choose to do with their bodies. And, Lori and I, we are not doctors, we are not counselors. All we can do is express our personal experiences and for you to maybe ask the question, can I do this myself? And work with your healthcare provider and find out. Now, my healthcare provider, my doctor, is more open to energy healing. In fact, one of my doctors taught me how to do energy healing. And she is a former anesthesiologist, and she retired early to go into energy healing. And just by that, her credentials got me on this path because I wouldn't have been on it otherwise. You know, there was no way. I mean, if you told me I was going to be doing this 10 years ago, I'd be laughing, like, whatever. But here I am. And I've learned through her and through research. A couple of people I would recommend people start looking up and doing their research with is Bruce Lipton. He wrote a book, Biology of Belief. And then Greg Braden, he's another scientist who shows how we can use our minds to heal. And so my doctor, I keep this on my desk, Lori. This is my Synthroid or
Mhm.
levothyroxine, which is my kind of a generic version of Synthroid. I still have it, still have some pills in here. It's long expired, but I was determined to come off of it. About 20 years ago, my thyroid turned off. I mean, it was not functioning. And God bless the doctor I worked with because heavens, she prescribed Synthroid and I did get better. And and I appreciate that. And there's a time and place for physicians to do what they need. And I didn't know that I could take it further. The problem I personally had, and speaking from my own personal experience, that over time I began to develop brain fog. And they said, well, that can't happen with this drug. And I'm like, well, I don't know where it's coming from. All I can tell you is that now I've been on this drug for so long. that I feel like the benefits are not there. And I just became determined I'm going to be my own guinea pig and see what I can do.
Mhm.
But I also know how important it was for me to stay working with my healthcare provider. And my doctor said, okay, go ahead and try. But the caveat was I had to give her a blood test every 3 months. She was, and if I had any changes that were more sudden drops and stuff, she goes, you call my office immediately. So I personally chose to try to get off my medication, but I did it with my doctor. And so when I do energy healing, and when I talked to Lori in the beginning about her diabetes and knowing that she needed medication, I'm like, if you're going to work with me and we're going to try this, you have to stay with your healthcare provider, because it's as dangerous to come off of medications as it is to stay on them for long term. And we're not doctors. So you
Right.
do have to go through your medical professional to make sure that you're being monitored if this is your choice. And in fact, I will not work with anybody who's on medication that will not commit to me in writing in an email. I promise to work with my healthcare provider as I go through energy clearing, because I know that taking too much medication can be as detrimental as not enough medication. And
Mhm.
only my doctor can tell me what I can take.
Right.
So, with that said, and I think that's so important, because you don't want to get yourself in a position where you go off thinking you're cured and you're not,
Right.
right? Because then you
Right.
could really be in trouble. So don't play with it. Work with your healthcare provider. Lori's doctor said no. Okay. So she took it upon herself to take the risk, but she also knew if she was mindful enough, if things happened, she would contact her doctor, or she would go
Definitely.
back to how it was prescribed. But through the process, she managed to get right with her doctor. Whether the doctor knows or not doesn't matter. The doctor may think, oh yeah, the meds are working, and that's what I got. So um, I started providing my doctor with my blood test. And she goes, Sally, nobody comes off of levothyroxine or Synthroid. Nobody,
Mhm.
so you must be taking it. So she really didn't even believe me.
Right.
And I'm like, so she goes, go ahead and keep taking it, as prescribed. I'm like, yeah, but doc, I haven't had it in 2 months, And so it took like a year of providing blood tests to show. And she's like, at the end, she goes, nobody ever comes off of that.
Mhm.
So, when you think about it, we make ourselves sick by our emotions. And when we have trapped emotional energy, and Dr. Bradley Nelson talks about this a lot, trapped emotional energy can ball up and stay inside of us. It also, like with anxiety, your stress hormones are just popping off, and next thing you have is adrenal fatigue, and your body just comes so out of balance. So if you can wring that sponge and get those trapped emotional energies out of your body will heal itself. Like Lori was saying earlier, your body will do an amazing job of healing itself. But you got to get the trapped emotional energies out of the way. And there's several other steps I go through. I go through 18 steps of clearing somebody energetically. Um, and it takes about 4 1-hour sessions to do it. But at the end of the day, then once we cleared most of it, like Lori was saying, you've got to run with it yourself. And that's what I try to do, is empower everybody. Because, well, I had a client like yesterday, Lori, that even like you were saying, I've cleared all this anxiety, but sometimes my mind runs away with me and it begins
Yeah.
to rebuild, right? And you can rebuild those energies. And I said,
Yes.
Lori, do you want to hire me on retainer, or, any other energy healer? And she's like, no, I don't. I'm like, okay, this is what we need to do. We need to give you tools to
Mhm.
self-soothe until you can rewire your own neural network in your own brain that will eventually get you so you won't go back to the monkey mind. And
Right.
so we talked about tapping and all that. So you were
Hmm.
able to have the tools to
Hmm.
say, okay, Sally's done as much as she could. Now it's up to me to not reactivate and rebuild those energies. And
Right.
so you began to take on, because you did feel better once we moved and cleared those energies.
Yes,
Um,
and there were still times where it was kind of like being on a tightrope. Like it could have easily bobbled the other way. Like
I
it was
think you
still.
became fearful that it was going to pop
Mhm.
up again. Oh yeah, I feel
Yes.
great, but it was
It's
like
still
this
there, kind of
monster in
right
the
back
woods
here.
coming after
Right.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so the tapping and learning how to, and we go through all that,
Mhm.
to redirect and self-soothe. So it becomes almost, and would you say you're to this point, Lori, where it's almost impossible to feel anxiety at this point?
I actually have to try really hard. And there's that muscle memory that it kind of, you just get a little twinge, like, I'm here if you need me. Like, do you want to reactivate this? And then it's just this very, I know I've talked about the clarity. It's this very clear message. It's, I think I said to you earlier, it's like a mother voice that says, here's the message. No, you're okay. You're good right here, or whatever the message is. It's that doesn't let you go there anymore. So I don't think I could ever go back to that place.
Yeah. And that clarity, I think, when we're talking about clarity, I think we're talking about, it's that communication stream between your point of view consciousness here in the physical body to the higher
Mhm.
self, the higher dimensional everlasting you, the part of
Yeah.
you that ever has been and always will be. And it's that dialogue. It's like you pick the lid up off. It's like lifting the lid, and now
Hmm.
you have that stream up to the higher self. Would you
Yeah.
characterize that as about right?
Yes, I would. I think that is so spot on.
It's so
And isn't
cool.
that amazing? The you that you were and the you will always be. That's your source. That's that clarity. And it's
Yeah.
all, it's like Dorothy with the ruby slippers. You've had it all along, my dear. Click your heels.
Right. And those are messages that we've been taught, and yet we just don't ever hear it, you know?
We didn't understand the
Um,
relevance.
yeah. My sister-in-law is an evangelical Christian, so for her to accept what I do, can be a little bit of a challenge, but she knows that I work in a pure, loving heart space. And
Mhm.
so she allows me to work with her, which is very kind of her. But I kept saying, but you need to take your authority, your attention and intention in order to have people or have yourself heal. And sort of just what we were talking about when you were lowering your blood sugar by yourself, it was placing
Mhm.
not so much a meditation, but going into quieting your just, okay, breathe deep, focus my attention, intention, and you
Mhm.
begin to see your numbers lower, and you remember
Mhm.
what your body feels like when it feels normal and not blood
Yes.
sugar spiked. So
Yes.
it's in that remembering how your body feels. So you're
Mhm.
placing your attention and
Attention.
intention, you're focused on your body, and
Mhm.
you're focused on how it feels when it
Mhm.
feels normal. And that's
Yes.
how you were able to lower that for her because of her point of view. And we work with everybody. I work with Muslims. You'd be surprised. My people. I have Amish people. I have
Mhm.
Christians. I have evangelical Christians.
Mhm.
So my clients are a broad base because we're all working in our heart space, and we're all beginning to wake up and understand that our consciousness, our inner power is there. And how do we tap into it? For her, I showed her the video of the shrinking tumor and then the cloud being dissolved. And she's like, okay, a little weird, you know. don't know where that's coming from. I'm like, oh, come on, it's coming from the love space. It's not bad or demonic.
No.
It's all about healing and love. I mean, we're not trying to harm, we're working in the best and highest good for all. And okay, she was really nervous. But
Sure.
then she had, I don't know what they call it. They have these little books where they open every day and they read their little passages. I'm
A
so
daily
sorry.
devotional.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, the daily devotional. I'm so
Mhm.
sorry to anybody if I don't mean to insult anybody.
I think that's what it's
Yeah,
called.
I think it is right. And she went right to it the next morning and it said, if you command the mountain, move, move. And she goes, I got it. I got
Bingo.
it. And I'm like,
Right.
yes, yes.
Right.
And I said, do you want to level yourself up? She goes, what? And I said, go from believing and level it up to knowing. You
Hmm.
don't have to be a certain faith system. You don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to be a Jewish person. You don't have to fit into a mold. You just have
Right.
to tune into yourself and know that you are a continuation of God's source energy and that he's given you, made in his image, he has made you this way. And as long as you are feeling, doing the best and highest good for yourself and others, you are in the right space for
Right.
healing yourself and others. Would you characterize
Right.
that as true?
Definitely. And I go back to a video you've shared with me a couple of times from Greg Braden when he is speaking with his Native American friend.
Yes.
And his prayer was not a prayer of something to happen. He put himself in this space as if it was already happening. In that case, they were needing rain. So he had taken his shoes off and he felt what the ground felt like when it was mud because it was saturated by the rain, and he felt the rain on his face. And, that's what you're doing when, in my case, I am trying to lower a blood sugar spike. I'm feeling not, oh, I want it to feel this way when it comes back down. I'm feeling it or putting myself in the space where I feel what it feels like to feel good and feel level. And I think that's what you're talking about with your attention, being in that space where it's already done.
So here's
And
the question.
yeah,
And I don't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. We can
no,
do
no, no, no. But
um
if for people like the Christian faith, where you're talking about a prayer, that is, we're putting labels on it, but that is the prayer to
yes.
be as if it is done. We just get so hung up on labels.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we don't because we're all saying the same
The
thing,
same thing,
but we're just
right?
using different words to define the same
Yes,
place.
yes.
And that's what's beautiful about this. This is why we
Hmm.
we are not disconnected, disjointed, separate people. We're all one. We're all saying the same thing. The question I have for you, when we when before we activated the third strand of
Uh-huh.
DNA,
Hmm.
it was a little harder for you to just sit there and lower your own blood sugars.
100%. Yes.
Okay, so tell
Yes.
us that difference right there.
Yes. Like I still believed what you were doing was working. But I still didn't, and you said it's going to happen. It's going to be like a light bulb. When we turn this on, you're going to see the power within yourself. And I still felt to a degree like this is something Sally is doing to me and for me. Not that I knew I could dissolve the cloud. I knew, I could make a change. I knew I could remove the resistance and I could actively believe in what was happening, but I didn't until the third strand. And this has been like just a very recent thing. The knowledge, the clarity, it was like that light bulb. And I can say definitely that it happened about the same time that you activated that third strand. And then the power really came to me, the knowing, the clarity really came to me. And I believed it and I practiced it and I knew it.
And now here you
So,
are.
and now here I am.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
so
kind of
incredible.
amazing. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
Oh my gosh.
It's a
Well,
neat process. It's um, mind-blowing at the same time. It's, oh gosh, logical. Of course, we have this.
that's the clarity talking right there.
Yeah, it is. The mind-blowingness is that we didn't tap into it before.
Yeah, and then you're gonna
Yeah,
look back and you're like, how could I have been in that big of a fog? Or how
right,
could I not see it? And
right.
yet we're just like, kind of going through our lives like zombies.
Autopilot. That's how we're all going through life, on autopilot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Holy cow. Well, it's going to be interesting. We're going to follow up with another video after we turn on strand number 4, which is enhancing her psychic abilities. I think for Lori and I, because of our great great and her great 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 grandmother,
Mhm.
Serena Brown, um, I think it's going to be very cool to see if we can activate our telekinesis.
Yes. Yes. And
That'll be fun.
I will say that Sally and I have had, well, her more so than me. She, because of our connection, she has felt things that were going on that she had no idea were going on. And we were very surprised when we compared notes that these things were actually happening. So I think there's already a little bit of that turned on, probably due to our, family line, but it is just going to be so exciting to see
It
what
is. It's going to
happens.
be a lot of fun.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can't wait to do that. But we said at the end we were going to talk about that DNA strand number 7, 8,
7. Yes.
9, 10, 11, and
Yes.
12. So what was really interesting is that um, they're not showing me. They're not going to give it to me. And I said, can we go ahead and activate strand number 7? No. Well, can you tell me more about why not? Nope. And I'm like, well, that's unfair. So then I started, okay, I'm going to start asking my hypnosis clientele if they would mind me asking, why are they not giving us strand number 7 activation? And I was surprised to hear, I think everybody kind of gave me the same answer. I only talked to 4 people though, but they don't know each other. And the 4 people have come out and said, we are not ready. Us telling you, you might accidentally tell somebody and they'll figure it out. And then a couple of the gals got up and said what they were getting was that we harm ourselves through the curiosity. And that's what happened to Atlantis. And I'm like, what? you know,
Okay.
it's like, no, we're not going to give you the matches
Okay. All
that could
right.
produce a fire to warm you or burn down your house.
Okay.
you know, so I don't know what strands 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 does, but I
Okay.
do know they're not going to give it to me yet. It might be interesting to see if and when that ever happens, or if some people have it. I have a feeling the bigger gurus, maybe the monks who've done, I don't know, 50 years of, meditation, and that you hear about these Buddhist monks in Tibet where I don't know if there's like a handful of them that turn their bodies into rainbow bodies, and that their physical bodies, just disappeared and they had rainbow bodies. Maybe that's what happens, when you get the rest of them turned on. I don't know. But if anybody's out there who are meditators and you ask that question, email me and let me know. I want to know. They'll probably block you like they blocked me, but maybe they'll give it to us when we're ready. We're just not
Sure.
grown up or sophisticated enough for that. They're like, no, you're going to stop at 6, so you're going to be done.
Yeah, so human beings as a species, like we are not able to handle that kind of information. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right.
And if I knew, I might tell it to the wrong person.
Sure.
I'm like, okay,
Okay.
I wouldn't want to do anything. I don't want to do any harm. Certainly don't want to, get sucked into some black hole,
Sure.
But I'm like, okay, but I'm so curious. But again, they say what curiosity kills a cat, but you're like, no, you got it. But you'll get what. So curiosity. I always tell everybody at the end of my videos, stay curious. You should stay curious because the information will
Sure.
be downloaded to you as you grow and need it, and what is within your responsibility to handle and share with others.
Yeah.
I would say it that way.
Yeah.
Hope I'm right.
I agree.
So, but anyway, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens on our next video.
Definitely. Definitely.
So, well, thanks for joining me, Lorrie. Our hour is like way beyond. I can't believe it just went that fast.
It goes so fast.
It does. And then when we're talking about all things woo in our energetically speaking series, it's less like, oh my gosh, what can we talk about next? And going down the
Yeah.
rabbit hole and all that. So we're going to
There's
be
so
catching
much.
up in a future video on these other turn-ons and see how it affects us. With that said, if you'd like some more information about what I do, the energy healing or the hypnosis sessions or past life readings, you can reach me at sallyknop.com, and you can email me through that site, or you can send me a text message to set up your own personal consultation. I can't speak. I guess I'm done. Consultation. And that way we can start your journey to ignite the superhuman in you. All right, Lorrie, thank you so much.
Thank you,
And we
Sally.
will chat later. Stay curious.